Haru was a pathetic beta male who woke up in a fantasy world where he forms a party including two of the most beautiful women, but after their leader dies, Haru is forced to take the leadership of a party whose collective IQ is lower than a toaster and use his SS rank skills to help them survive the monster-filled dungeons. Our story begins with Haru waking up in pitch darkness and he has no memory of before or how he got here. Suddenly a gate opens and he goes outside to find a bunch of people just as confused as he is, staring into the night sky. They all notice a bunch of guards standing at some distance who direct them to a small tavern run by a not-so-straight guy who introduces himself as Bry, who claims that this world is known as Grimbar and welcomes them to this place. One of the white-haired guys tells him to shut up and explain what's happening before going to Call of Duty mode and hurling homophobic insults at him. Bry immediately strikes back by taking out a dagger and putting it at his throat and says that he hates cocky men. Even after that, Renji stands by his point and grabs the dagger defiantly. Bry decides to let him go and gives them their trainee badges and a bit of money, leaving them to fend for themselves against the monsters. The next day, Haru ended up banding together with the players that were not selected in any parties. They all made Man their leader and decided to join different guilds. Haru ends up trying out for the Thief Guild and meets up with a total called Barbara, who immediately gets him in a chokehold. After 7 days of constant ruthless training, Haru emerges as a full-blown thief. Maud the Fatty ends up becoming a warrior, Ran a Dark Knight, Yuma Hunter, Shy a mage, and finally Man, who becomes a priest. A couple days later, Haru and his group chase after a goblin while Ran tries to attack it, only to get blocked. The goblin retaliates and starts attacking Ran ruthlessly, pushing him back with each attack, forcing Haru to intervene with an attack of his own. Even Haru gets defeated and falls over while Ran tells him to kill the goblin. Haru tells him that he will shove a sword up his ass when suddenly an arrow barely misses him. It was shot by Yum, who was basically a stormtrooper, while the daddy of the group, Man, tells them to keep it together and to stick with close-range weapons. Hearing this, the fatty named Mog tries to attack the goblin, but his giant sword gets stuck in a tree while the goblin does a Fortnite dance and then attacks him before hopping back. The goblin suddenly turns around to spot Shy, the resident waifu, and runs up to her faster than my dad ran away from me and attacks her before she could defend herself with magic. Thankfully for her, Big Daddy Man comes in clutch and saves her from being attacked by the goblin. She starts crying because of a scratch like a not-so-strong independent woman, but Man immediately heals her before giving everyone the pep talk that this is a life-and-death situation, which gives everyone a boost of morale, and they get ready for a fight. Ran cannot believe that the goblins are supposed to be the weakest monster in this world, while Haru realizes that at this point, they are even weaker than the weakest monsters and are forced to run away. The next morning, Haru wakes up the crack of dawn and is immediately pestered by his roommate Ran, who makes fun of his Chinese eyes. They start a political discussion, but before long, they are interrupted as Man opens the door and tells them to come downstairs as the breakfast is ready. Haru realizes that today was his turn to make breakfast, but Man tells him not to worry as Haru seemed to be very tired after yesterday's fight. They go downstairs where Mog the Fatty is stuffing his face while Yum sits and watches him in awe. The 6 of them sit down in the courtyard for breakfast while Man asks whether everyone is feeling okay before saying that they should go inside the forest once again. He tells them that clearly 2 goblins were more than what they could handle, so they should simply try to find a solo goblin and defeat it. Ran doesn't seem to be a huge fan of this strategy as he wants to get as much XP as possible, but agrees to it nonetheless. They head out to the jungles, and by the time the sun sets, Yum is able to spot 4 goblins by a riverside chilling and having the time of their lives. They think of attacking but decide against it, even though their wallets are very empty because there is no way they can take on 4 goblins considering how weak they all are, so they all head back for the night to try again next day. That night, Haru wakes up at night to take a leak, but notices that Man is not home, so he goes outside to inspect and spots him coming back from outside. Man claims that he went out for a drink in that tavern, but it was only because he wanted to gain more information about this world and what's happening. Haru pours him some tea and thanks him for working so hard on the behalf of the entire team and fist bumps him before spending their nights looking at the scarlet moon. The next morning, they go inside the forest where Haru spots a lone goblin drinking water and reports back to the entire team. They immediately get ready with their weapons and start slowly making their way towards the stream. They creep into a bush while Haru takes out his dagger and gets ready to signal, but before that, Ran the massive dimwit shouts a war cry and runs towards the goblin, alerting him. Haru follows while the goblin starts running, but Yu shoots an arrow and stops it while Ran for some reason is fighting with trees. Haru ends up tripping and falls down to the bank, and the goblin immediately attacks him, while Haru dodges and tries to counter only to miss and ends up in a clash. Suddenly, he remembers his training and slits the goblin's wrist, which pisses the goblin off and it attacks again. Haru keeps dodging and running away while Man tells everyone to attack. Ran immediately goes for a wild swing but misses, and gets his ass kicked into dirt while the goblin immediately tries to finish him off. Thankfully, Man saves him with his staff while she chants a spell and shoots a magic spell only to miss by a mile. They all surround the wretched creature while Mog attacks it relentlessly, trying to maintain pressure, but the goblin jumps back only to get stabbed in the back by Ran. The goblin is on its last line of defense and starts screaming at them, which scares them a bit, but Ran decides to snap out of it and attacks once again, clashing against the beast, while even Haru and Yume jumps in only to get pushed back by the goblin. She tries once again, and this time she hits the goblin, but before Haru can capitalize on this, the goblin throws his dagger towards Haru, who gets stabbed in the shoulder and cries out in pain while the goblin rushes and gets on top of him, ready to give him the death's kiss. But at the last moment, Haru stabs the goblin in the neck while Ran pushes it off, and Mog delivers the killing blow on his head. Everyone is so shocked by what just happened, but Yume quickly runs to Haru and helps him get the dagger out while Man quickly heals him back. Ran immediately starts searching the goblin's body and finds a silver coin on its neck when suddenly the goblin swipes Ran's legs and starts running off, but Ran follows, slashing him down before stabbing it in the back. The goblin is still alive, so he stabs him in the chest, while she gets dizzy as Ran stabs the goblin in the chest, relentlessly making sure that he is dead this time. He falls to the ground and starts crying while Haru realizes that his hands are totally trembling from all the violence. After that, they end up going back to the city where they sell whatever they found for money and split their share before going off on their own ways to spend the afternoon. Haru decides to go and explore the market, where he sees all king of people and even Ran, who seems sad and is eating food while the others enjoy their evenings in their own little ways. That evening, they all meet up back at the bridge and watch the sunset together before heading back for bed, as they have to work again the next day for food. The next morning, Mog the fatty is again stuffing his face with food, while Haru also comes back from shopping and gives him some eggs so they can get yolked, and then heads out to wake everyone else up. Ran ends up calling Yoon flatter than the earth, which earns him a massive slap on the face, and the days continues to get worse as it starts raining, while they were in the forest, forcing them to take shelter beneath tents. Yume and Haru venture out and find a used campfire and find a bunch of footsteps made by goblins. Haru counts at least 3 pairs of footprints and decides to back off for the moment. They return to the rest of the team and they all decide to head back for the day, as there is no way they are fighting anything in this rain, meaning they will earn nothing today as well. 3 days pass by when they earn literally nothing because of the heavy rain, and they are so poor that Haru can't even afford a pair of undies and is washing and reusing the same pair over and over. The next day, they head out to a neighboring town which is in total ruin, but is known to be the base of goblins. But the good thing is that the goblins here are not very alert, making them an easy target. Haru goes out and finds a sleeping goblin in an abandoned house and reports back to the gang, and they all head out for the hunt. They take their positions and Ran slowly creeps up to a goblin and stabs it in the neck, waking him up. The goblin screams and tries to attack him, but Man quickly hits him in the face and then on the head, finishing it off. They end up getting quite a bit of loot from this goblin, giving them a boost in morale, but Man tells them that it's too early to celebrate as they have to safely head back. After that day, this ruined town became their go-to location, as they often found sleeping goblins who were easy kills, but sometimes were forced to fight in the open. They also spotted a group of 4 to 5 goblins, but fighting them was out of the question, so they avoided them and kept focusing on lone goblins that were inexperienced. Soon they started amassing some money, and finally Haru got enough money to be able to buy an underwear after some hectic bargaining, so they doesn't have to go commando anymore. Ran and Mog spend their money by spending it on food and even bring a bunch of food back home, but Man tells them to go easy on spending, as if they save enough they can learn new skills, which will help them during the fights. They all agree with this sentiment and decide to head back to sleep to head out adventuring again the next day. The next morning, Man and She go out to get the morning supplies, but while coming back, Man decides to feed some birds and spots She looking curiously. He asks whether she wants to try, but even though she refuses at first, she agrees to it later and tries to feed the bird. One of the pigeon ends up jumping on her hands and she stumbles back before falling over. Thankfully, Big Daddy Man ends up saving her and she gets rizzed. That day, they all head out into the ruins to clap some goblin cheeks, and one of the goblins runs up to Ran into a straight fight. Ran lunges in for a strike, but the goblin is easily able to dodge the blow. While Ran was engaging in a direct clash, Haru and Yu get into position before she demonstrates her new skills called Air Slash, which lets her hit enemies from afar. Taking advantage of this distraction, Haru runs up to the goblin and dodges his slash before stabbing him on the back as he falls to the ground dead. Yoon cleans her weapons while Ran finds out the loot, but it turns out that there are more goblins in the area. She immediately uses her new skill called Shadowbind and blasts it at one of the unsuspecting goblins, who gets trapped in place while Man boinks him on the shoulder, breaking its arm, and finally, Rand finishes the goblin off with a swift slash. Meanwhile, Mog is engaged in a fight as well, and they end up in a sword clash where Mog has the advantage thanks to his strength. He hits the goblin on the head before using his special attack, which sends the monster flying into a wall, and then Rand jumps on it for the finish. They collect whatever loot they found and sit down for some lunch after a very successful morning hunt. They all talk about how they have advanced as a team and are finally working in synergy to take down enemies with surprising ease. They even discuss the possibility of attacking larger groups of goblins now that they are much more experienced and stronger. Finally, they all get up to move out for the afternoon hunt, but while Man was leading the group, Haru suddenly notices something shining on top of the building and immediately jumps towards Man, pushing him away, while an arrow hits him in the shoulder. Haru falls to the ground while Man runs towards him, but before he can heal him, the goblin loads another bolt and nails Haru through the leg, making him scream with pain. Mog immediately carries him to safety as he loses his dagger, and Man immediately tries to heal him, only to hear the screams of the girls as a giant goblin emerges from the house. Rand immediately runs towards it, while Mog is busy with another goblin. Man tells everyone to back off while they still try to fight against the forces, only to realize that they are outnumbered heavily and will die if they don't run away. They hide through the buildings and start running away when one of the goblins rushes on top of a building and 360 no-scopes the shit out of Man. Even after that, Man keeps running and they end up finding their way into the forest where they are all breathing hard. Haru notices that Man looks a bit pale and suddenly he falls down to the ground as Haru spots a crossbow bolt on his back. They all quickly surround him and try to help, but Man was the only one who knew healing magic. He tries to heal himself, but it doesn't work while Haru asks him what they should do. Man tries to say something but ends up dying because of excessive blood loss right in front of them while they try to do anything to revive him. By the time evening comes, they all make their way back to the town and run straight to the temple while carrying Man. Haru immediately goes up to the chief priest and begs him to save Man. The old man goes to have a look at him but tells him that he can't save Man anymore as he is already dead. Rand gets angry and threatens the old man while Haru desperately begs him to try anything in order to revive him. Mog holds Haru back while the old man tells them that nothing can be done now and the best thing to do is to give Man a proper funeral, as in this area, when a fallen soldier isn't given a proper funeral, they become a zombie and are recruited into the Demon King's army. Mog asks whether they have to cremate Man, and the old man nods his head in affirmation, and hearing this, Shai ends up falling to the ground and has a panic attack while Haru asks whether it costs money. The old man claims that it costs a decent amount of money, but if they don't have it, he will pay for it, as Man was his student. Haru shouts at him that they will pay for Man's funeral, no matter the cost, as he was their comrade and friend who deserves a proper send-off. Everyone grieves for their team leader who was always calm, cool, and collected and made sure they all survived no matter what, and after cremating him, they blow his ashes in a beautiful valley so that he can return back to the ground amongst beautiful flowers. They all simply lay down where they stood, not knowing what to do anymore, as Man is the one who used to make plans and put everything in motion, but with him gone, the party feels aimless and completely lost. Rand finally gets up and tells them he is heading back. Haru asks him where is he going, but he simply replies that anywhere would be better, as he is not going to sit here and brood for the dead. This ends up earning him another tight slap to the face by Yu, who shouts at him and lets out all of her frustration before falling to her knees and crying while Rand still heads back all alone. Haru and the others sit there for some time more as he looks around to see his entire team falling apart. That evening, Haru and Mog go to the nearby tavern and spot Rand sitting alone on a table. They join him for some drinks while talking about what to do when Rand tells them that he doesn't want to adventure anymore. He claims that he doesn't have any will or drive to go in the forest or kill enemies, and will simply find some other job. Haru tries to knock some sense into him, but this leads to a total blow-up as both him and Rand start shouting at each other while he even accuses Haru of being the cause of Man's death, as if he didn't get hit twice by the arrows, Man might have had enough energy to heal himself. Before the fight could escalate even more, Mog ends up shouting at both of them, which is a big surprise as he always spoke very softly. He angrily tells them to stop bickering as it was no one's fault. Everyone calms down finally and they start discussing what they need to do further on. Rand claims that he doesn't think that they are capable enough of going on their own, as none of them are as good as Man. Haru tells him that they need to keep going on as it literally takes money simply to eat and sleep. Suddenly a guy named Kick approaches them. He claims that he heard them talking from afar and asks how they are doing. They tell them about the death of their leader and friend Man, and he feels sorry for them, but claims that they need to keep going on, but they would need a priest. He claims that priests are the center of a party and should never be in a vanguard, as it is basic knowledge and common sense that any enemy will try to target your healer and take it out if given the chance, as the healers are the most problematic party members who keep the whole team together. He claims that in his party, the priest is always protected by 2 warriors at all cost. This makes Mog feel bad, as he was always the one needing help, and instead of him being a tank, Man was always forced in a position where he was the healer, the tank, as well as the attacker. He tells them not to brood over it, as what's done is done, and tells them to keep going on, but before that he tells them to get a priest in their party, as without a priest, they are all as good as dead. Haru claims that no one will join their party anymore, as they are probably the weakest team and they have no money or any other incentive. Kick tells them to keep trying and promises to try and find them some candidates before floating off to some other table. The next morning, the team is introduced to a straight-faced bitch called Marie. She is supposed to be a priest, but looks the stark opposite of Man, as she has no smile and no charm. They try to introduce themselves, but Marie doesn't really care and asks them where they are going. Haru tells her that he thinks they should go to the ruins again, but Marie tells him to make up his mind before speaking whether or not they are going to the ruins. Ran tries to butt in and tells her to change her attitude, but her cold nature even makes him uncomfortable, and he simply apologizes for no reason. She tells Haru to start moving, otherwise she will go back home, while the entire team feels uncomfortable with the team dynamics, unsure about how long this alliance could keep going on. Later that night, the boys went to the tavern to get drunk again while discussing the difficult situation they had been put in. He remembers how difficult it was to cooperate with Marie, as when he was drawing up plans, she simply refused to go and fight, as according to her, she is a priest who needs to hide and will only howl herself when someone is injured. Ran tried to talk to her about this and told her that she needs to show up in fights as well, but she totally flipped him off to a level where everyone was sitting on the floor while Ran and Marie were arguing about strategies, even though it's Haru's job to make them. Finally, when it came to actual combat, Marie was totally ignoring them and their formations, which made even Mog mad, and when they finally clashed with a goblin, Ran got hurt, while Yum and Haru together ended up pushing the goblin back. Haru told Marie to heal Ran while they hold the goblins off, but Marie simply replied that his injuries were not that serious and there is no need to waste mana on such a small wound. Because of this mess, the goblins, who were on the verge of defeat, ended up using the distraction to run away, and they got nothing out of that fight. Haru simply drowns his sadness with drinks, as he thinks about how Big Daddy Man could have controlled this situation with ease, as when he was around, 2 goblins were a piece of cake for them. But Haru thinks that he is not capable enough to do the same no matter what. Ran tells them that they should simply forget about her and make their way through the ruined city, earning as much money as possible so that they can buy themselves the badge for the next rank. Haru tells him that they can't simply drop a priest from their party, when suddenly everyone gets quiet as Renji walks inside of the tavern looking like he is living his isekai fantasy, as he is completely covered in awesome armor from head to toe. He walks past everyone and comes close to Haru before giving him a gold coin as a gift because he felt bad about Man's death. Haru immediately gets up and follows Renji, giving him his coin back, claiming that he appreciates the gesture but he can't accept this coin. Renji simply accepts and move on, while Haru comes back to the table where Ran is pissed off at Haru for declining the coin, as 1 gold coin is equal to 100 silver coins, and with that much money they could have bought badges for everyone in their team. Mog claims that Man wouldn't have liked it if they simply accepted someone's money, but Ran still disagrees. Haru suddenly speaks up and claims that it's not just Marie who is the problem, it's all of them. According to him, they are not communicating at all, and ever since Man's death, they have barely talked with the girls to begin with. Ran tells them to find out a way to make them friends again, but Haru tells him that he has no idea how to do it. Later that rainy night, Haru waits outside while Yum comes out of the bath. He asks her whether she is angry with them, but she very coldly replies that she isn't angry at them. Haru apologizes to her, saying that it was his fault and that he should have asked her and Shea first as well before inviting Marie to their party. He tells her that he believed they couldn't do anything without a priest, so he probably rushed into the decision. Yum suddenly shouts that it's not about that before rushing into Haru and starts crying, claiming that both her and Shai are not good at conveying their feelings and have been feeling left out ever since Man's death. Haru replies that even he is bad at expressing his feelings, while Yu tells him that they used to be friends, all 6 of them. They were always a team, but ever since Man's death, they have all been fighting for themselves without a care for anyone else. Suddenly it hits Haru that he has been trying too hard to fill in Man's shoes, hoping to do everything by himself, but Man was never like that. He always trusted his team and made sure that all of them fulfilled their role and worked as a team to overcome any possible obstacle. He totally breaks down like a bitch and starts bawling his eyes out, and this time Yum starts comforting him, hugging him while telling him that everything will be fine soon. After a long session of letting their feelings out, they finally settle down on the dirt, hugging each other and laying down as best friends normally do when Yoon tells him that she will try her best to become friends with Marie and that they will surely bounce back from this. While they were laying down, Shai opens her bathroom window to let some steam off, when suddenly she notices Yoon in a very compromised position as from her angle it looks like she's blowing Haru's trumpet. Haru immediately gets flustered and starts telling her about how it's not what it looks like, but she simply apologizes and gets embarrassed before shutting off the window. Yoon, however, doesn't mind this and tells Haru that she is an expert trombone player and could demonstrate her skills someday, but Haru tells her to piss off as his eyes are on the juicy chicken thighs possessed by Shai. The next morning, they all sit down for some breakfast while getting ready to set out for another adventure, and while talking to each other, Yoon claims that even though Marie hasn't been the most cooperative, she thinks that none of them have tried to extend a warm, friendly hand towards her either. She tells them from today she will try to be nice to Marie and make her a friend. Maud comments that he wants to be nice to her, but she never listens to anyone, and she never heals anyone either, while Rand tells them that he's going to make her fall in love with him, and that way, she will try to be nicer to everyone else as well. Everyone simply ignores this idiot, while Haru tells them that they need to go slow as she can't suddenly get friendly with everyone in their group, and they all agree. Later that day, they all go out to meet up with her, and this time all of them greet her, and even though she ignores them in the start, later she ends up greeting them back and then follows them. On the way, Yu tries to strike a conversation and asks Mary what she had for breakfast, and with all her brain power, Mary replies that she had food in the morning. She tries to continue the conversation by asking whether she liked any snacks, but Mary simply told her she never snacks, and that's the secret to her perfect figure. Finally, they enter the ruined city and hide behind some rubble after spotting a bunch of goblins ahead. Haru makes a plan and tells them that Ran and Ma will attack first while Haru and Yoon will flank and Marie alongside she are supposed to provide support. Ran and Ma proceed with the initial attack, surprising the goblins while Yoon and Haru attack from the other side, sandwiching them in. The goblin attacks Haru and he barely dodges while Shea provides cover and Yoon comes in for support. They both begin attacking the goblins in tandem while on the other end both Mog and Ran end up getting hit by their opponents and try to fall back. Mary immediately shouts at Mog and tells him to stay forward and not to fall back as he is the warrior, which enrages Ran, who calls Hera stuck-up bitch. Ran gets attacked, but he dodges and then kicks the goblin away before rushing in for a massive thrust, stabbing Goblin in the neck. Meanwhile, Mog is able to win the sword clash and then uses his heavy blade to completely crush his opponent, winning the bout. The last goblin is still going strong against Haru and Yoon, wielding two swords, making their attacks hard to connect, but she comes in with a Shadow Bind spell and traps the goblin in place, giving Yoon the opportunity to attack, but the goblin frees himself and dodges away just in time, only to get attacked by Haru, who slips past its swords and then delivers a massive backstab, killing the goblin immediately. They all seem happy with their teamwork, while Mary walks up to Mog, who got hit in the head, and tells him to remove his helm while she inspects the wound. She apologizes when he feels the pain and then uses her healing abilities to cure the wound and stops the bleeding before cleaning it up. Ran shouts at her to heal her as well, but she tells him that he only has a tiny scratch which is starting to clot up already, and if he wants to get healed so bad, he should lick his wound. Haru realizes that she will heal people after the battle when the threat is eliminated, because that way she can use her mana more efficiently and finally understands her actions. They go back inside an abandoned house to rest, and while doing that, Haru tries to make small talk and asks whether there are different types of priests. Mary replies that she doesn't know anything about that, but Haru presses on, saying that she seems to have a set way of doing things when it comes to healing, whereas man would heal anyone immediately as soon as they got a wound. He then asks what exactly is her game plan, but she tells him that he doesn't have to know that. He gets slightly frustrated but keeps his cool and tells her that they won't pry into her personal life and they just want to know enough so that they can function well as a team, as they all have their own roles and responsibilities that they need to fulfill. She cuts him off and tells him that if he doesn't like the way she works, he can say that to her face and she will leave immediately. Haru tries to tell her that it's not like that, but she cuts him off and asks him what the hell is his problem then. He thinks it's best to leave things as it is for the day, and they head back in the evening. By the time night falls, Haru alongside everyone else, including the girls, visit the tavern, and Rand tells them to settle down as this is the first time they have been anywhere like this. While talking to each other, they notice Marie entering the pub, and even after she saw them, she simply ignores and moves on alone. Rand is getting frustrated with her behavior, and to be honest, who wouldn't but Shai claims that even they didn't try to call her over right now, so they can't blame her completely. Rand claims that they don't have to be considerate towards her for no reason, and Yoon replies that even Rand's parents must not love him, which results in a bickering contest again until they see young Knight walk up and talk to Mary. Ran recognizes him as Shin, who is the part of a famous clan, and they all start thinking, why could he be talking to Marie? That night, Haru sits alone by the campfire, thinking about Big Daddy while also being pessimistic about his own strengths. When Man's illusion appears besides him and tells him that he can do it, he replies that he can't do it because none of the girls call him Daddy, but Man tells him that he can do it, and just like he appeared, he vanishes, leaving Haru alone while he is tripping balls. The next morning, they go down to the ruins once again where Mog and Haru are in a one-on-one fight, but Haru slashes at his opponent before looking over at Mog, realizing that he is forced to fight carefully as he doesn't have a helmet, which means that he will die with a single hit to his head, and unlike a thief, he can't even attack someone from behind. He quickly climbs behind the goblin while Mog pushes it back, giving Haru the opportunity to slash at its wrist, confusing the beast, while Mog hits the goblin down the bridge. He realizes that up till now, he never thought about their fighting styles or even observed any of his teammates fight before, which might be the reason why he wasn't able to make plans like Man. While walking through an alley, Haru tells Mog that he should buy a helmet even if it's just a cheap one, and if he doesn't have money, he will chip in as well. Mog tells him that he shouldn't chip in to buy something that he won't even use, but Haru replies that a helmet will help Mog to fight more openly, which will distract the goblins from the other members of the team, giving them an opening to attack. Marie closely listens to this conversation while Yoon claims that this is an excellent idea, and she wants to chip in as well, which results in even she wanting to chip in to get a good helmet for Mog. Up ahead, Ran tells them about goblins in the area and Haru is forced to clash with one, while a hidden goblin tries to attack Marie, but Ran comes to her defense and kicks the beast away before stabbing it to death. He shouts at Marie to stop standing at one place and making her an easy target, but without saying a word, she swings her staff and clobbers another goblin away. Haru realizes that even Mary has learned attack skills with her staff, but she is not like Haru who goes in the front line, but she is definitely willing to protect She when danger arises. They all head back for the day in the evening, and while Marie was about to go her separate way, Haru stops her and asks whether she would want to go out for dinner with them as they have had quite a successful day. Marie declines respectfully, but this time she bids them farewell before leaving. Ran again calls her a nasty bitch, but Yoon claims that she thought Marie was nicer than usual today and slowly but surely is warming up to them as well. Haru agrees with this sentiment, and to get to know her better, he decides to meet up and talk with Shin from the famous clan called Orion, and ask the other members to accompany him. That night, they all go into the pub and end up meeting with Shin, who sits with them at their table. Haru raises the question about Marie, which seems to surprise Shan, but he tells them that his team member Hayashi is more likely to give them a better answer, as he used to be a member of her team before. Hayashi sits down and tells them that they also used to be a 6-player party like Haru's party, and they were pretty good in terms of synergy and coordination from the beginning. He claims that within 10 days they were able to get enough money to buy themselves to the next rank, and they kept getting stronger and stronger, fighting more and more enemies each day. The core of their party was Marie herself, who was very cheerful and lively. She never made anyone feel left out and was always ready to help, to the point where if anyone got even a tiny scratch, she would immediately heal them. Even after being a priest, she didn't shy away from going to the front line and defending her teammates, and it could be said that she was worth 3 players alone. According to him, they kept getting stronger to the point where they became cocky. They started venturing deeper and deeper into the dungeons, and one unfortunate day, they entered into a very deep lair to fight the stronger monsters, and there they encountered a huge white monster who had already killed quite a few of the players. They should have ran, but everyone in their team thought that they could handle it, and that was their biggest mistake. He got knocked out by the monster, and when he came back to consciousness, he spotted 2 of his teammates dead on the ground, while their team's warrior was trying everything he could to keep the monster back. He shouted at Mary to heal them, but she didn't move and was simply clutching onto one of her teammates' body before turning around with tears in her eyes and shouting that she has no mana left for magic. The warrior of their team was covered completely in wounds, and there was nothing he or Marie could do to help him. He somehow got up as the monster attacked the warrior and sent him flying back, deeply wounded. The warrior gets up somehow with the help of Marie and Hayashi and tells them to leave this place immediately before giving them his dog tag. Hayashi realizes what needs to be done and grabs the dog tags of the remaining members of the team before dragging Mary back, as the warrior decides to give his life away in order to save his 2 dear friends. The last thing they saw was the monster attacking their friend, and after that everything was fuzzy in memory. After that they ended up joining Shin's clan, but Marie left soon enough as it was too painful for her to stay in the same place as Hayashi, as it was a constant reminder of the people she has lost. Ever since that time, she's been party hopping continuously and never stays in a party for too long, as she's afraid of making connections and getting attached to people. He then gets up from the seat and bows before asking them to take care of her and leaves. Shin tells them that he can understand the pain of losing someone, as he also lost countless comrades before, and tells them to treasure their friendship as they will only realize its worth once it's gone. On their way back to their home, Ran starts complaining that just because she has had a rough past doesn't mean they have to play extra nice to her. According to him, every single one of them have had a rough past, and if she isn't willing to put an effort into getting past that and making friends, then he is not interested either. She starts crying at this like the little girl she is who cannot control her emotions because of her biology. She tells them that they should try to be friends with Mary as they have also lost a team member and understand her pain. Haru supports this sentiment and tells Ran that they need to listen to her and treat her as a friend first, as only then will she be able to consider them as friends. Ran looks at Haru and asks him how many times he has tried to listen to him. He complains that no one ever listens to what he wants to say and that everyone ignores his ideas. Yoon replies that his ideas are always dogshit, so of course they ignore them, which results in another bickering contest. Meanwhile, Haru thinks about it and finally realizes that even Ran feels like his feelings are not being validated and decides to make amends. He apologizes to Ran and tells him that he will be more careful from now on and try to be more of a friend to him. He tells him to stop being a sissy and apologizes to Shi for saying bad things about Mary. He then asks them how he should interact with her tomorrow, which makes even Haru wonder how they will face her now that they know her past. The next morning, Yum and Haru were again scouting the area while the weather was gloomy and rainy when Haru notices that one of the goblins has his dagger that he dropped the day man died. He gets worked up because of that and tries to rush in to get it back, but Yum quickly pushes him down just in time as one of the nearby goblins barely missed them and proceeded to go on his patrol. He apologizes to her, saying that he hasn't been himself for the past couple of days and tells her that they should try and find out where its secret hiding place is. Meanwhile, Ram, Shai, Mog, and Marie are chilling in an abandoned building, passing their time and waiting for Yum and Haru to come. They finally arrive back totally drenched in rain and announce that they weren't able to find any good targets as all of the goblins were either in big groups or extremely alert and in positions difficult to reach. Ran claims that they should head back if there is nothing to do over there, and everyone gets up, but Haru tells them that he wants to talk to Marie first. She seems to be taken aback by it, but bravely faces him, asking what does he wants, and tells him that if he wants her to leave the party, he doesn't need to sugarcoat it, and can tell her directly, and she will leave immediately. Haru realizes that they all have been acting weird ever since they heard about Marie's backstory, and she must have picked up on it and believed that they were planning to kick her out. Haru promises her that they don't want her to leave and starts talking. He tells her that before her, they used to have a priest called Man who was their leader as well. He continues that Man ended up dying by the hands of goblins, or more honestly, their carelessness is what took Man's life. He tells her that Man used to heal them even if they got a tiny scratch, and alongside that he was also the shield of the party alongside Mog. Essentially, he was doing 3 jobs alone, and even after that, he never let them realize it and silently bore all the weight alone and died in the end. He claims that when Man died, all of them thought that this was the end for their party, but to sustain themselves they needed money, and to go adventuring they needed a priest, and that's the only reason they wanted her in their team. He tells her that originally they were simply a bunch of people who weren't taken in any of the teams, so Man decided to befriend all of them and created this party, and now even after he is gone, they are still good friends who would support each other through the thick and thin. After that, he tells Marie that no matter what she thinks, he considers her a friend as well. Marie seems to be a bit taken aback, but Shai chimes in that even she considers her a friend, and soon every single one of them, including Ran, tell Marie that they all want to be her friends. After that, when the rain finally gets over in the evening, they all head back home while a beautiful sunset can be seen on the horizon. Just before they were about to go their separate ways, Haru invites Marie to help them find Mauve a helmet, but unsurprisingly, Mary simply apologized as she wouldn't be able to come. Haru persists and asks whether she would like to join them for dinner, but she looks at them with sad eyes and tells them that she needs a bit more time for that. After that, she bids them farewell and runs away while the rest of the party heads off to find Mauve a helmet in the market. They were able to find an adequate helmet and head back for the day, and after that, fighting goblins became a little easier as Mog could charge in the enemies without any fear, and they start getting back on track each day. Now their teamwork becomes good enough that they can take down a party of 4 goblins without much trouble, and alongside that, each day they were able to get even closer to Marie, who slowly but surely was warming up to them. They started going to those ruins to hunt down the goblins each day, and soon everyone started knowing them as the Goblin Slayers, and whenever they went to the pub, a bunch of them would make fun, which Piss ran off, but Haru told him that they are not lying. Day after day, they continued their onslaught against the goblins, and soon they had no trouble taking down any and all goblins that came in their way while they kept upgrading their gear from whatever money they were able to get. Soon they were able to even recognize one goblin from another, and finally they were able to invite Mary with them to dinner, and while everyone was laughing, Marie still looked sullen, and Haru realized that he has never seen her smile before. Soon they were able to invest in better armor and even learned some more skills like Haru's muting skill, which concealed his footsteps so he can sneak up on enemies better, followed by Shi's shadow magic, which puts any enemy asleep for a short duration of time. Ran was able to get backstep ability to quickly create some distance between him and the enemy, and then his thrust ability, which allowed him to lunge super fast with his stab attack, often catching enemies off guard. Meanwhile, Mog invested in the Warcry skill, which paralyzes the enemies for a short moment, which is enough time for Yum with her increased accuracy to take care of. On the other hand, Marie has always been quite a few levels above them, so she didn't really need to invest in anything. Meanwhile, Haru learned a new ability which sometimes lets him see the path which his blade needs to take in order to one-shot the enemy, and if it hits the mark, any enemy dies in a single slash. That night, they all head back for a good night's sleep as they have decided to finally finish the remaining goblins from the ruins, as they have become much more powerful than before and believe that they can take them all out in one fell swoop and finally avenge the death of man. The next morning, they all get together, ready for the raid, and have one last group talk where they all put their hands together, and Haru gives a speech about how much he loved Big Daddy Man's staff and promises that today is the day they will avenge the death of their teammate. Haru claims that the last time when they entered this particular area, man was taken away from them, and he can never describe the amount of pain he felt, and tells them that he never wants to feel that again. So the main goal is to stay safe and get out of this alive. Marie, on the other hand, finally opens up on her own, saying that she let her friends die in a dungeon before, but she will make sure that none of them die here this time. The goblins seem to be having a pretty uneventful day, as some of them are patrolling and keeping a watch while others are sleeping, playing cards, and some are even playing chess without having any idea that their boring day is about to become the most action-packed time very soon. Yum starts sneaking up at first behind a goblin, while on the other side, Ran and Haru get into position by the staircase for an attack. Meanwhile, Mog, Marie, and Shi are all hiding inside of the ruins waiting for the ambush to happen. Yum decides to get out and takes aim before nailing one of the crossbow-wielding goblins in the neck, killing it immediately, and before the other goblin could realize what happened, Haru rushes him and stabs him in through the back. This alerts the chief of the goblin, who is playing chess. Meanwhile, the goblin attacks Haru as he dodges away and tries to block the attacks to the best of his abilities, but Ran comes in with the save and slashes the goblin's throat open. Mauve, on the other hand, breaks through the door, alerting all of the goblins, who get ready and start waking up their troops, while the heroes start systematically clearing out a building when they spot two goblins coming down the staircase, but Mauve immediately attacks them, crushing one of them into the wall while the other one jumps above. Thankfully, Shi is there to cover and hits it with her Shadow Blast, which knocks him out for a moment, and as it starts falling to the ground, Ran uses his sword to slash it mid-air, killing the goblin, while Mog lands a powerful blow to the other one, killing it as well. Haru and the others immediately head towards the top floor to not give the goblins chance to assemble, but a bunch of crossbow-wielding goblins are ready and start shooting at them, forcing them to take cover. The bouncer goblin, who probably works in a club, walks up and smashes the table behind which Mog was hiding, leaving him in the open before swinging his club and throwing Mog into the wall. Ran immediately jumps ahead and starts dealing with the smaller goblins instead, leaving the big one for Mog, while Yum starts shooting arrows at their general. The general is much tougher than the normal goblins and simply breaks the arrows in half before rushing towards them with a thrust. They dodge the attack at first, but the general pushes Haru back with another attack which is blocked, while Yum rushes at him from behind, distracting him and forcing him to defend. Taking advantage of this, they are able to slash the goblin's waist, while Mog is having a total head-on war with the bouncer trading continuous blows, while Ran tries his best to hold his own against the two goblins pushing him back. He immediately uses his backstep ability to create distance, hoping while shouting at Haru to help, but Haru replies that he is a bit busy with his own goblin, who tries to land two quick attacks before being forced back by Yum. She finally gets into position and chants a spell before firing her shadow magic at the bouncer, immediately sleeping him and giving Mog the opportunity of a lifetime to finish him once and for all, but he ends up choking at the last moment as one of the goblins blocks his attack with a rock, while another one slaps the bouncer around to wake him up. Haru realizes that they can understand magic as well, which is a problem as the tides start to turn. The general ends up stabbing Yum on the shoulder and raging Ran, who tries to attack, but is blocked by a goblin. Haru immediately rushes to her defense and attacks the general, only to get blocked and pushed back as the general starts attacking relentlessly as he starts losing even more ground, realizing that if this keeps happening, he will end up taking a lethal blow. Thankfully, Marie arrives just in time and switches position with Haru. and as the general tries to attack Marie, she simply blocks his blow before boinking him on the head with her staff, giving Haru the opening to rush in with his attack, and he starts stabbing the general in the chest. The general is one tough son of a and is still alive and kicking, so Haru tries to stab him in the heart, but the monster uses his hands to block the attack and hits him with the back of his spear, pushing him away. He tries to get once again, while Marie quickly uses her healing ability on Yum, but by the time they turn their attention towards the general, he already escapes. Ran and Mog both are still fighting with their opponents, and no matter how tanky Mog is, he gets pretty knocked up by the bouncer and starts feeling dizzy, but doesn't back off and keeps providing the rest of the team enough space to fight. She tries to fire another shadow blast at the bouncer, but he dodges before hitting Mog again with his club. Mog falls to the ground, but Marie immediately casts her healing magic on him while Yum gets into the fray again, and everyone gets busy. Shai decides to take matters in her own hands and runs ahead, chanting her spell and shoots another shadow blast at the bouncer from behind, and this time it hits the mark just before two goblins tackle her down. The bouncer gets knocked out for a second, which was enough for Mog to deliver a decisive blow, breaking the ground beneath. Seeing this, the other two goblins start running away, but Ran uses his dash ability and stabs one of them in the back, killing it. Thankfully, she isn't hurt, and even Ran acknowledges her bravery, while they all regroup and decide to follow the remaining goblins to end this once and for all. They all ascend up to the top floor, where they find the general sitting down on his chair, barely alive as blood drops from his injuries while he breathes heavily, unable to move. Ran walks up to him and puts his sword at his neck, but before he could kill him, they hear a swish sound and turn around to see that Marie got hit with an arrow shot by one of the goblins who was hiding on top of the beams. Marie falls to the ground as she tries to catch her, and the general gets up again to chase Haru, but Yum slashes his legs while Haru takes an arrow in his arm to protect Marie. Ran tries to finish the general off, but his armor protects him and shoves Ran away, but Mog comes in clutch and lands a heavy blow on the goblin, killing it. Ran tries to find a way to catch the crossbow goblin, while Haru seems to be scared out of his mind. Thankfully, Marie seems to be still talking and tells him to tend to her wound. The goblin runs outside the window and aims at it to kill anyone who chases him, but Haru uses his 1000 IQ brain and throws his cloak first, which makes the goblin use his shot, and then he runs outside rushing towards the goblin, who throws his crossbow and takes out the dagger that he stole from Haru. They clash as the goblin jumps above and lands behind, but Haru immediately follows through, and with a cool combo, he kicks the goblin to the ground while the dagger falls from its ugly hands. Haru gets on top of it to kill him, but the goblin turns the tides, and as they tumble on the roof, it gets the upper hand on Haru, sitting on top of him and choking him out, but Haru is able to grab his other dagger and stabs him through the neck, killing him just as Yum arrives to help. After avenging the death of their fellow party member, leader, and their friend, they all go back to the valley to visit Man's grave as the first snow of the season starts falling around them. They all say some words about him while Mary stands and watches from afar before they all take out their new badges, and Sho and Shay walks up to the grave and produces a badge that they bought for Man as well. She puts the badge on top of the gravestone and then starts breaking down while Yum holds her. They all start heading back, and while going back, Haru starts talking to Marie, and finally she is warmed up to him completely, which gives him the opportunity to try his max level Riz on her, but she's not very easily impressed and tells him to try next time before they split off and go their own ways. The next morning, Haru wakes up early in the morning by habit, but realizes that they have decided to take a day off since their last day was pretty heavy in terms of physical and mental exertion. He goes downstairs and finds Mog cooking breakfast, so he simply starts brushing his teeth while thinking, what the hell does he do with a free day? They sit outside for some breakfast as he bites into the freshly baked bread made by Mogul Weissman and starts eating it alongside some amazing looking stew. Haru asks Mog where the rest of the gang is, and he replies that Ran left early in the morning alongside his fishing pole, so he will probably spend his entire day waiting by a creek and not catching anything while she has gone out early in the morning as well. Haru asks where Yum is, but Mog says that he hasn't seen him all morning, which makes Haru suspect that she is still snoring in her bed. He asks Mog what he will be doing with his free day, and he tells Haru that his armor got pretty banged up in their last fight, and alongside that his sword got dull as well, so he would probably spend his time at the armorer getting his stuff fixed. Haru calls him a loser for not going to clubs and getting late on his day off, and tells him that he's going out for the day as well. Haru tells him that they will be meeting at the tavern that night, and then he leaves to roam around the city as he has nothing better to do. He comes upon the bridge where he finds She totally vibing with the pigeons now and feeding them some crack, while Haru tells her about Mog's new bread recipe. She simply smiles at him and claims that she had it before once and it was absolutely bussin'. They then start looking at the sunrise, remembering the time when they came here together in the evening, and after that they part ways. Haru goes onto a stall and gets some meat skewers and then walks through the city aimlessly looking for anything interesting to do in this boring-ass city when he comes upon Marie reading a book like some posh wanker in a cafe. She seems to be surprised by Haru, but he promises that he is not a stalker, so she offers him a seat. He gets some coffee while Marie claims that she has been living on the floor above the cafe ever since she left the last guild and comes down here every now and then to enjoy some time alone. Haru gets up, thinking that she wanted him to leave, but she reassures him that she would enjoy his company and starts petting a weird anteater plus cat-looking abomination. Haru uses this time expertly to sneak a peek at her chicken thighs, but comes to the conclusion that Shai definitely has juicier ones. She tells him that they should all come here sometime for some relaxing tea, and he agrees while Marie tells him that just like them, she also used to live in those cheap dingy lodgings, but then she earned a lot of money and became a rich bitch. Haru looks at her and claims that soon enough even they would leave their lodgings and find a better place as they have been earning a decent sum for the past few days. Meanwhile, Rand is still waiting in his boat for even a single fish to catch when he spots someone trying to scale a boulder. He looks closer to see that it was Yum, flexing her cool rock climbing skills better than Tom Cruise himself. Mob, on the other hand, is a total mood as he is simply taking a nap on his chair after he got all his pieces of armor back. Both Marie and Haru leave the cafe together to meet with the others at the tavern, but stop in the middle to see another beautiful sunset against the orange sea. Later that evening, they all assemble in the tavern once again, and while talking, Kik stumbles upon them once again and tells them that there has been some happenings in the city. According to him, some rookie adventurers went inside the ruined city and ended up encountering a bunch of armor-clad goblins who killed several of their teammates and injured a few of them as well. Mary chimes in and tells Haru that she is pretty sure that they killed all of the goblins from the main ruined area, but it is very possible that a bunch of goblins who might have been related to them but lived somewhere else came back to occupy that place and take revenge on whoever killed their family. Kik affirms this by saying that according to the word of mouth, these goblins were completely prepared for a fight and were angrily patrolling and searching every part of the city to make sure it had no adventurers inside of it. After saying that, Kik tells them that it's not their problem anyways and leaves before copping a feel of Haru's chest. Haru and Marie return back to the table, and Haru tells the others about the rumors of goblins still being present in the ruined city. Haru claims that maybe they should go back to the ruins once again and check things out for themselves, but Rand interjects by saying that they shouldn't do that, as if the rumors are false, they will end up losing a day worth of money for no reason. Mog suggests that they should consider switching hunting ground as it has been ages since they have exclusively been adventuring inside of the ruins. Hearing this, Haru softly says that they might go to the Cyrene Mines, which takes everyone aback because that's the place where Marie lost all of her teammates. He immediately tries to apologize to Marie, but Idiot Rand tells Haru that it is the best idea he has had in a while and claims that they should definitely raid those mines and get as much loot as possible. Yuma asks whether they are sure about it, as the giant monster is also present in the same mine, and if Marie's team couldn't do anything, they won't even stand a chance against it. Rand tells her that they should at least try, as the monster has a bounty of 30 gold coin on it. Haru tells him to calm down and tells everyone that no matter what, they have to change their hunting grounds, as always staying and raiding the same area means that they get comfortable with the place and end up making careless mistakes as it feels like an easy task. He claims that it is good to challenge themselves once in a while, and he doesn't know of any other places to adventure, so he thought they might try their luck inside of the mines and take extra precautions to not mess with the giant monster. He tells that he votes for going to the Cyrene Mines and adventuring there. Yoon speaks up and claims that she doesn't think that it is bad to go to the same place to adventure again and again, as they have been getting into less dangerous situations lately as they have gotten better, but Haru tells her that if they keep going to the same place, their progress will stall, and she agrees with that sentiment. Suddenly, Marie stands up on her seat and starts breathing really heavily and looks up towards Haru, completely distressed. She asks them to excuse her for a bit, and she walks off alone away from the seat. Haru immediately gets up and starts following her outside, but she vanishes in the darkness of the night. He keeps looking into the starry night and finally finds her on top of the staircase. He walks up to her, but she collapses and apologizes for running away. Haru thinks about his statement of wanting to go to a place where she lost all of her teammates and realizes that it must feel like a tremendous task for her to get past mentally. She tells him that she doesn't think she can remain calm and collected when they go inside of the mines, not only now, but maybe even in the future. Haru understands her sentiments and assures her that he wouldn't put her in a position where she is uncomfortable. This gives Marie some courage, as she realizes that if this keeps going on, she cannot ever move past her teammates or what happened inside of that mine, which is not a way to live. She looks at Haru and tells him that she wants his help and her team's help, as she doesn't think she could do it alone. Haru reassures her that they will stand beside her no matter what, as they are friend, and that she can depend on them completely whenever she feels like the situation is getting out of her hands. She gets up and wipes her tears before thanking him for his words and saying that she looks forward to their next adventure. Before going to the mines, they all decide to upgrade their skills and gears so that they have maximum chances of coming out alive. Haru went to the Thief Guild to meet up with his trainer Barb, who calls him a little stiff since the last time she saw him, and within the blink of an eye she closes the distance and puts a knife to his throat. She tells him that if they were in a fight, Haru would have been deleted in an instant, and without giving him the time to speak, she simply slams him to the ground. They start training in bars into some kinky things as she keeps beating the crap out of Haru every possible moment she could get, and after beating him so many times that he can't even stand up, she finally gives him the gift of a lifetime by sitting on his stomach and then starts tormenting him, asking whether he has ever gotten laid or not. Haru is so tired that he honestly replies that even though his party has 3 girls, he is such a loser that none of them have even looked twice towards him. Bar makes fun of him some more, but then Haru changes the subject and asks her about the magic path that he sees sometimes while fighting against the enemies and what exactly is that. She seems to be impressed by that and claims that it is a good sign, as only adventurers that have gained a substantial amount of experience are able to see it a couple of times. She starts doing handstands on him while talking more and telling him not to get cocky as it is not something very special. Haru asks whether she could see it, and she sits down on him again, claiming that she sees it a couple of times here and there, but this ability is something that you can't simply focus on as it comes on its own. She tells him that if he wants to see it more often, he needs to get stronger, and then starts training him once again. Some days pass by and finally the team is fully ready to explore the dungeons of Cyrene Mine. They look upon the mountain while Haru gives them all a word of advice, claiming that they are going in uncharted territory, so they need to be more cautious than ever, and with that out of the way, their journey begins. As soon as they get inside, the fight begins. Haru is matched against a weird monster who tries to shell his face in, but Haru slips past the attack and then tries to counter, but fails and is forced to back off. He slams into Rand, who is also losing ground, while Mog kills his monster with a single swing. Yu takes out her knives and throws one of them at the monster's neck before using the other one to slit his throat cleanly. Mog decides to help the others and rushes towards Haru's enemy, engaging him in combat and acting as a distraction. Haru takes advantage of that and runs up from behind, getting him in a body lock before stabbing him in the chest and jumping back. Mog raises his sword for the finish, but the monster is already dead on the ground, so they move towards Rand quickly, who blocks the attack of his opponent before backing off and chanting a spell, casting an Illuminati sign and throwing some red liquid on the enemy. This new skill of his makes the enemy scared and unsure of its decision, which leads them to make mistakes. The monster rushes towards Rand and starts attacking him relentlessly, while all he could do is dash back again and again, losing ground very fast. Haru asks whether he needs help, but Rand refuses and tells him to mind his own beeswax. He finally finds an opening and slashes the monster's wrist before jumping in the air and delivering the killing blow. After the area was cleared, Nuri tells them that these monsters are called cobs and they have a nose ring which is known as a talisman. They need to collect that as they can sell it for a decent sum inside of the market. She also continues on to tell them that these cobs are basically the weaker ones that are found near the entrance of the mines, and warns them that once they go inside, they will face cobs that are much stronger and more in number as well. They quickly gather as many talismans as they could from the dead enemies and then move forward. They descend down to the next level, and Marie warns them that now shit will hit the fan as this level consists of normal cobs, and the best thing to do for them would be to avoid fights as much as possible. They start walking and suddenly hear a bunch of howling noises which scare them, but Haru gives them some confidence and starts moving ahead. Mog suddenly stops where he was because he heard something, and they all peer into a hole inside of the wall only to see a bunch of cobs sleeping inside of it. Mary claims that they are really lucky that these cobs are not patrolling the area, and they start moving. Rand, on the other hand, stops for a moment and contemplates whether he should simply kill them all as it is easy loot, but Haru tells him that it would be a low thing to do even for someone like him. They move forward as some of the cobs start waking up. They enter a chamber where she uses her shadow magic to convert the ground to quicksand, which makes it impossible for the cobs to move, and the rest of her team take advantage of this situation by quickly getting rid of them with accurate strikes to their vital organs. One of the cobs who was hiding is spotted by Haru, who immediately sneaks up behind it and ends up seeing the path to kill it. He simply breathes out calmly and follows the line straight up to the opponent's neck and stabs it dead in a single strike. They collect the talismans while Marie acknowledges that they are stronger than she thought, as they didn't face much problems dealing with the normal cobs, but tells them that now it will be extremely hard as the next level has the leader of the cobs known as elders. Ran wants to go forward to the next level, but Haru tells him that they should go back for the day and not push their luck as they are already tired and fighting stronger opponents in this state might be dangerous. Ran seems to be disappointed but agrees nonetheless, and they all return back for the night. While laying down in his bed, Haru starts thinking about Daddy Man once again and realizes that their team seems to be working pretty efficiently apart from Ran, as he is the one that everyone has a problem with. He doesn't listen to anyone, he doesn't take suggestions or criticism, and is always ready to charge headfirst in dangerous situation. He decides to talk about it and asks Ran whether he would want to talk. Ran was awake and gets up to go outside, while Haru follows. After going down, Haru asks him about his thoughts on the team, but Ran brashly replies that he doesn't have any, their party is just a party and that is it. He tells Haru that he has been performing his duties and that's all he cares about, like today he proved that he could take on an enemy single-handedly without the help of others. Haru tells him that he did end up taking the enemy alone, but if he let them help, they could have killed the enemy much quicker and have saved a bunch of energy as well. Ran immediately replies that if he keeps thinking that his teammates would come in for the save or help him, then he will be in a lot of trouble when he's caught alone by the enemy, and alongside that, if he can take an enemy alone, that means that the team can focus on another objective, which will make them even more efficient. Haru realizes that Ran has been thinking about his place in the party in his own way, but tells Ran that he can't always go in without consulting the team, but Ran feels like he doesn't have any obligation to ask for permission before doing anything. Haru tells him that his brash nature makes it hard for the team to understand what he actually wants, and that's completely his own fault. He tells Ran that they are all working as a team and to do that they need to communicate. Ran replies that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, but Haru is always eager to bring Ran's weaknesses into light. He asks Haru what his weaknesses are, but Haru never thought about what he himself is not good at, and is silent. Ran smirks and tells him that they can play a happy, friendly team if they want, but he has no reason or want to be all chummy with them, and he will continue doing what he does best before walking off to bed. The next morning, Haru wakes up to the sound of knives going into a wooden board and gets up to see Yum practicing her knife-throwing skills. He is impressed by her abilities while she shows him the knives that she bought recently and has been practicing every day to get better at throwing them. After stretching some more, they finally enter the dungeons where Marie showcases her new ability, which doesn't do a lot of damage but numbs and weakens the opponent, which works very well with Ran and Mog, who can jump in afterwards and finish the kill with their heavy attacks. Ran ends up missing and seems to be having trouble dealing with the enemy, so Haru immediately jumps on its back and stabs it in the neck, while Ran thrusts his sword into the enemy's body, barely missing Haru by a hair's margin. Haru gets a bit mad at this, but realizes that Ran is simply born an idiot, so he moves on to aid Yum, who is trying to hold her own against one of the cobs, so Haru goes in for the assist and slashes the monster's leg, giving Yum the opening to deliver 2 solid strikes, while Mog finishes it by using his new ability called the Air Thrust, which lets him close distance quickly and attack enemies at range. They'd finally encounter one of the elders, and Shai immediately uses her magic spells to slow it down. Haru tells them that if they play their cards right, they might be able to defeat this monster without sustaining any injuries, but before they could think of a game plan, Ran goes in for a thrust and kills the monster immediately. After that, they descend to the next level, which seems to be an open farmlands of sorts. They all look around and Yum spots a bunch of weird animal-looking things coming towards them. Ran tries to poke them with his sword, but Haru tells him not to do it, and they start bickering again. Suddenly, Murray tells them to crouch, and they all immediately drop down as they see a bunch of cobs looking around for any signs of intruders. Ran suggests that they simply kill them all, but Marie advises against it, saying that the number of cobs here is insane, and if they get discovered, the cobs will swarm them very quickly. Unfortunately, Ran ends up tripping over wire, which alarms the enemies, and they all start howling and looking around for the source of this sound. Suddenly, they hear the sound of loud footsteps, and Marie immediately freezes on the spot. Haru notices it and tries to call her, but she doesn't reply. He peeks through the bushes and spots the huge monster with black and white patches on its body, who is known as Death Spots, who killed Marie's old teammates. Yun tries to catch a glimpse, but Haru immediately pulls her down just in time while Marie is still stuck in place, having a panic attack. Haru walks up to her and snaps her back to reality, while Spotty has been looking around for them as he could smell humans. Marie apologizes for spacing out and tells them all to follow her quietly. They descend to the next level safely, but this level feels like hell itself, as everywhere they look they can only see lava as the temperature rises. They spot a bunch of cobs working with metal and making armor, while Marie tells them that they can't rest here and need to move quickly. Haru starts playing Assassin's Creed and jumps on one of the guards from above, stabbing him in the neck, killing it immediately, while Mog and Ran quickly grab the body so it doesn't make a sound. They drag the body to hide it while the other cob barely misses them. They run from cover to cover and finally enter a cave which is filled with beautiful-looking plants and statues. They all sit down for some time to get some rest while Marie tells them that this is exactly the place where she lost 3 of her teammates. She walks ahead and picks up a staff, claiming that it used to belong to her before, but when they ran, she dropped it down here. While sitting, Yum suddenly gets up, claiming that she could hear something. Ran grabs one of the light plants and throws it in the direction of the sound, only to see 3 hooded figures standing in the darkness. They move forward and Haru immediately realizes that these are zombified adventurers who didn't receive a proper funeral. Marie realizes that these zombies are her former teammates, so she goes ahead and calls them by their name, hoping that they would somehow snap out of it, but they seem to be too far gone and immediately draw their weapons out. Our heroes get ready with their weapons and armor as well while the zombie mage casts a massive fire magic towards them. They somehow dodge the attack while Marie tells Haru to cover her as she wants to go ahead. Haru realizes that Marie has recently learned at dispelling magic, which can even reverse back the changes on a zombified corpse, but to do this she will need to get into close quarters with the zombies. She starts walking towards them unafraid while Haru realizes that they need to do something, so he tells Mog to deal with the warrior and Ran to deal with the thief with Shi as their backup, while him and Yum will go ahead behind Marie. Mog and Ran attack their opponents while Haru comes face to face with the zombie mage who dodges his attack and immediately uses a firewall spell to block their view. Ran gets pushed back by the thief, so Shai uses her shadow magic and binds the enemy, giving Ran the chance to attack, but to their surprise, the thief manages to block his blows and keeps fighting even after being stuck in place. Haru realizes that he might have been mistaken, as a thief is weak against heavy attacks that Mog can deliver, whereas if he fights elusively, the thief can easily engage Ranta the entire day without getting tired. While he was distracted, he gets a fireball to the face, and so does Yoon, forcing them to be more careful. Meanwhile, Mog's opponent seems to be much more agile and jumps in the air before delivering a very acrobatic attack, pushing Mog back. Shai immediately uses her sleep magic and shoots it at the warrior zombie, but it doesn't affect it in the least. Meanwhile, Ran screams at her for support as the thief wouldn't stay still. Haru realizes that he needs to do something, so he starts running along the firewall, only to spot Marie, who goes through the fire towards the mage. Haru follows her inside and spots her getting ready to use her dispel magic, so he immediately attacks the mage, forcing her back and giving Marie the opening to reverse the curse that converts the zombie into a real human being for a second before turning to dust as she hugs her. After that, Haru tells Yoon to assist Mog while he will go towards Ran and deal with that problem. He runs towards the thief, and in conjunction with Ran's attacks, he tries to hit the zombie but misses. Haru decides to rush in and starts clashing against the zombified thief, but their skill level seems to be matching, but he realizes that in the long run the zombie will outfight him. He signals towards Ran and immediately goes in for a flurry of attack while Ran uses this distraction and slashes through the zombie's legs, making it drop down while Marie quickly rushes in and uses her magic to reverse the curse again. After that, Ran rushes towards the warrior and starts attacking it together with Yum and Mog, which gives an opening to Haru, who grabs him from behind, while Mog slashes away its arms, giving Marie the opportunity to dispel the curse on her final teammate as well. They finally sit down to relax a bit and talk when suddenly a huge explosion is heard and Spotty the massive cob enters the cave and starts walking towards them, giving Marie some serious Vietnam flashbacks. Haru tells everyone to run, but Ran tells him to save himself as the monster swings his massive sword at him, but Haru barely dodges by performing a slipping maneuver. Spotty grabs his sword and rushes towards him once again, slashing at him, but Haru moves out of the way and runs to the other side. He tells everyone to quickly escape while Spotty emerges from the rubble and lets out a big howl, alerting every other cob in the area that come rushing with swords and spears to block their path. Haru tells Mog to use his war cry at them, which makes them confused, and they stand in one place, while the party escapes towards the exit. Haru tells Mog to use the skill again, but he doesn't have enough mana, and because of that, she gets captured by one of the cobs who tries to attack, but Ran rushes in for an attack and scares it away. Haru tells Ran to be the rear guard, so Ran pushes the cobs back and starts running behind his teammates. Marie and Haru make the jump, followed by Mog, who picks Shi up and jumps, and finally Ran alongside Mog's sword makes the jump successfully and lands on the wooden bridge. Haru tells them to move their asses quickly as the cobs are increasing in number, while Yu tries to hold them back with her bow and arrow, but it is impossible to stop all of them. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise and find Spotty following them and trying to break the structure that they are standing on. He finally tears it apart, and Haru starts falling but tries to run on the falling beams to try and reach his party when he misses the final jump and starts falling. Thankfully, Ran comes in clutch and grabs his arm as Haru dangles above death. Ran tells him to quickly climb up, and as he was climbing, the enemies start shooting arrows at them, while Spotty takes out a giant shield and hurls it towards them. Haru reaches his safety, but before Ran could reach him, he starts falling and Haru is unable to grab his arm as he falls down below into the rubble amidst the enemies. Ran screams from below and tells Haru to run away as he is the leader now and needs to make sure the team is safe. Haru tries to argue but gets shot at and is forced to run away. He climbs up to the farmland place and informs the team about what happened, before telling Marie to take them out of here before they all die. They immediately hide behind the walls as the enemies start shooting and they all get ready to move. Meanwhile, down below, Ran takes a deep breath and shouts at Spotty, claiming that he will be the one defeating the monster of the mine alone. His cool moment is short-lived, however, as the enemies start barraging him with arrows, once again forcing him to hide. The cobs start trying to climb the rubble, but Ran doesn't back off easy and starts throwing pieces of debris down, preventing them from gaining more ground. He somehow manages to escape to the upper level and stumbles his way into farmland and drops down to the ground. The weird pig-looking creature surrounds him, and he decides to use that for his advantage and hides amidst them, regaining his composure. He uses his dark magic to summon a demonic creature and ask for its advice, but it is totally useless, as the demonic creature just wants everyone to die, including Ran. Meanwhile, the rest of the party regroups while Mary heals Haru, and he makes a plan to find Ran somehow and make it all the way to the top without losing anyone in their party. They all start slowly making their way into the farm while one of the cobs ends up going near the pig monsters, forcing Ran to stab him in the chest. The dropped weapon of the cob alerts the others, who immediately ring the bells and alarms everyone for the search. Haru and the others also hear this, and from above they spot Ran trying to make his way out of this situation. He hides inside of the closet, catching his breath while enemies search nearby. Suddenly, Spotty ends up breaking the closet and spots him before trying to pummel Ran to death. He somehow survives and uses his backstep ability to dodge Spotty's attack before limping away. Spotty follows him and would have killed Ran, but Yum uses her bow and shoots Spotty in the eye, while Haru runs up to him and grabs him. The other cobs attack Marie and the others, but she is strong enough to defend herself while Mog starts laying waste to anyone around him. She finally decides to use her offensive magic and creates a bunch of explosions, killing multiple cobs at once while Marie heals Ran as Yum screams that her arrows are over. Haru tells her to back off and makes his way forward, killing 2 of the wolf beasts before getting back to back with Ran again, while his teammates kill other monsters to make way for them to run safely. They take advantage of the chaos and are able to escape to the upper level, where everyone takes a breather and Marie heals Ran's wounds. They all start making their way out of this hell, happy to have even survived, when to their absolute horror, Spotty climbs up the side of the ravine and tries to attack them once again. Mog rushes in for a strike, but Spotty breaks his sword and throws him aside, while even She's magic can't do anything. Haru decides that he is the one who has to do something now, so he rushes in alone and dodges Spotty's attack before grabbing his neck and pushing him back down the ravine alongside himself. Marie tries to help him, but Ran understands the situation and takes everyone out with him. Haru wakes up from his fall and realizes that his wrist is broken, and by the time he patches it up, Spotty wakes up as well. Haru has no idea what to do anymore and almost accepts his defeat when the path opens and he gives it his all. He follows the path with his blade and stabs the monster's eye before slashing his sword into 2, which impales Spotty in the chest, and he dies on the spot. Haru looks around unbelievably but gets so weak that he falls to the ground unconscious. The next time he wakes up, he finds himself in his bed while Marie is sitting beside him. She lets out a cry of joy by finally seeing him wake up again, and he goes down to find out that they all were able to escape safely, and after that they came back again to find Haru lying beside a dead Spotty. That night they celebrate in the tavern, while even Renji commends Haru on his skills and apologizes for offering him a gold coin when Man died. The next day, Haru goes on to Man's grave and finally feels like he found closure as he has one last talk with Man's ghost and tells him that he will make sure to lead the team the best of his abilities no matter what they face. Watch this video on the screen next. See you soon.